this down. Mr. Cisneros has returned, so he's going to have his 5 minutes of questioning.
Sorry, I had to stop and go to make an appearance at another committee hearing and ask my questions there. But I want to thank you all for being here today, and I want to thank the three of you especially for sharing your story. I know it's very brave of you to do that. Lieutenant General Darpino, I was troubled by your analogy with the parents, and the commanding officer, good order and discipline. Totally agree. It is the job of the commanding officer to maintain good order and discipline, and he's given things like NJP in order to help him do that, just like a parent is able to discipline their child when they come home late and they miss curfew, and the commanding officer through NJP can do those certain things too. If somebody misses a curfew I was in the Navy, so on a ship or for whatever reason, they're allowed to do that. But if that child goes and commits a serious crime, the parent is not allowed to say, well, you know what, I'm just going to discipline them and I'll take care of it. So why would we do it any way different with the commanding officer? If there's a serious crime, why do we still allow the commanding officer to go and to make that determination as to how he's going to discipline and make the decision?
Yes, thank you. And as I said, it wasn't a perfect analogy, and it was really one to demonstrate how command authority is linked to the ability to hold someone accountable. And I do understand exactly what your point is, and I did not intend for it to be used as the perfect example. But I think an example that might help to illustrate it that has to do with what we do, a core element of what we do as warfighters, is that in the case of a law of war violation in combat, it is the commander that you would expect to be able to send that message to everyone else, that to go out into the village and murder citizens is not acceptable. You would expect that a commander would be the one who would stand before the troops and send that message by sending that case to a court-martial. And so that example is an example where the two are linked based upon exactly what it is that we do as an Army in our service to our nation.
I hear your analogy, right, but a lot of these aren't situations they're not happening in a wartime situation. And I can recall a situation where there was an officer who committed, we'll call it a crime, was removed from the ship next day. Mm-hmm. I know, and the CO had nothing to do with it. So, Lieutenant Commander Elliott, you are a commanding officer, so I have this question for you. In your view, are commanding officers adequately trained to handle sexual assault allegations in their units or their commands?
Absolutely not. We are trained as commanding officers to provide the response and provide the training of, to prevent sexual assault, and we're trained how to take care of our victims if they're assaulted. But we're not judges. I have a 3-day legal course before I became a commanding officer, and that was the extent of my legal training. So I feel like we're given good tools to address the program. We could for sure improve, and like anything else, it depends on who's providing us the training and what our bosses find important. But I do not feel that we are trained as commanding officers to be able to make these decisions about felons by any means.
All right. And I just have one last question for all of you. And Colonel Herring, you kind of mentioned this in your opening remarks, but and I'm just going to read it back. Where is it? Sex crimes against women have never been treated with the same level of outrage or professionalism as other serious crimes. Do you all agree with that?
No.
Colonel Christensen?
I think it's generally true, yes, but there are some units are better, some legal offices are better, others aren't. So I think there's general belief, a view of disbelief.
Colonel, you made the statement, so I'm going to assume you agree with it.
Well, not only do I agree, but I think that history is replete with examples, not just within the military, but across our institutions where sex crimes against women are just not treated, perpetrators are not held to levels of the same levels of accountability as other types of crimes.
Lieutenant Commander Elliott?
Yes, sir, I would agree with that. And as an example, it just happened less than 2 years ago. I witnessed a young lady I mentored, someone very hard grabbed her rear end, which would be abusive sexual contact. And the person that did that got a slap on the wrist. He was an E-sex, and who later that 2 months later found out he made chief, and they allowed him to go ahead and become a chief petty officer, where there were 2 E5s that broke curfew, weren't doing anything wrong. They were just out past curfew, and they're now E4s. So the joke in the command is like, it's okay to sexually assault somebody and still have a career, but it's not okay to break curfew. So yes, I do not feel we treat these crimes seriously.
I'm out of my time, but if we could just real quick, a yes or no, Ms. Hanson, Ms. Bapp.
Okay. I agree as well. In my case, mine was my boss and my full board colonel. And then when a congressional was made about my case, Secretary Heather Wilson made the statement in an official written statement that his character of service and his record and his deposition of his case. So I believe that we've lost the bubble and control of where we need to be at.
Ms. Bapp.
And real quick, I just think it's less about the prosecution and the understanding of the actual criminal act, but the psychological complexities around sexual abuse and the cycles of abuse of power. I think that is what is misunderstood and is at the core root. So I would say that is the bigger issue than sex crimes and things.
Lieutenant General Derpino.
I definitely think there is more work to be done, and violence against women is a problem in society, and high school, Hollywood, and the halls of Congress, and that we need to continue to focus on this issue and not take our eye off the ball.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.